Hey there. I'm pulling up this little website. Give me 1 second. I was listening to my first one. Just going over some stuff, and I was like, "Holy shit! I never pulled this up to show it to y'all." So, no further ado, let's read this. It's going to take about, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. So bear with me. I'll do my very best. When I say I'll do my very best, not to interrupt the language or the speech of this letter. I'll just read it all out, and then I'll go back to key points, and then we'll keep it pushing from there. The Willie Lynch letter, the making of the slave. Now, understand, people will claim that the Willie Lynch letter is fake, this, that, the other, but we're just going to read it just for our own peace of mind. This speech was delivered by Willie Lynch on the bank of the James River in the colony of Virginia in 1712. Lynch was a British slave owner in the West Indies. He was invited to the colony of Virginia in 1712 to teach his method to slave owners there. The term lynching is derived from his last name. December 25, 1712. Gentlemen, I greet you here on the bank of James River in the year our Lord 1712. First, I shall thank you, the gentlemen of the colony of Virginia, for bringing me here. I am here to help you solve your problem. I am here to help you solve of your problem with slaves. Your invitation reached me on my modest plantation in the West Indies, where I have experimented with some of the newest and still the oldest methods for control of slaves. Ancient Rome would envy us if my program is implemented. As our boat sailed south on the James River, named for our illustrious king, whose version of the Bible we cherish, I saw enough to know that your problem is not unique. While Rome used cords of wood as crosses for standing human bodies along its highways in great numbers, you are here using the tree and rope on occasions. I caught the whiff of a dead slave hanging from a tree a couple miles back. You are not only losing valuable stock by hangings, you are having uprisings, slaves are running away, your crops are sometimes left in the fields too long for maximum profit, you suffer occasional fires, your animals are killed. Gentlemen, you know what your problems are? I do not need to elaborate. I am not here to enumerate your problems. I'm here to introduce to you a method of solving them. In my bag, I have a foolproof method for controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if installed correctly, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. My method is simple. Any member of your family or your overseer can use it. I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves, and the differences bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control. The methods have worked on my modest plantation in the West Indies, and it will work throughout the South. Take this simple little list of differences and think about them. On the top of my list is age, but it's there only because it starts with an A. The second is color or shade. There is intelligence, size, sex, size of plantations, and status on plantations. Attitude of owners, whether the slaves live in the valley, on a hill, east, west, north, south, have fine hair, coarse hair, or is tall or short. Now that you have a list of differences. I shall give you an outline of action, but before that, I shall assure you that distrust is stronger than trust, and envy stronger than adulation. Respect or admiration The black slaves, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and will become self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young black male against the old black male. You must use dark skinned slaves versus the light skinned slaves, and the light skinned slaves versus the dark skinned slaves. You must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. You must also have white servants and overseers distrust all blacks. It is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. They must love, respect, and trust only us. Gentlemen, these kits are your keys to control. Use them. Have your wives and children use them. Never miss an opportunity. If used intensely for 1 year, the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful of each other. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's make a slave. It was the interest and business of slaveholders to study human nature, and the slave nature in particular, with the view to particular results. I and many of them attained astonishing proficiency in this direction. They had to deal not with earth, wood, and stone, but with men, and by every regard they had for their own safety and prosperity, they needed to know the material on which they were to work. Conscious of the injustice and wrong, every they were every hour perpetuating and knowing that what they themselves would do. Were they the victims of such wrongs? They were constantly looking for the first signs of dreaded retribution. They watched, therefore, with skilled and practiced eyes, and learned to read and with great accuracy, to read with great accuracy the state of mind and heart of slave through his sable face. Unusual sobriety, apparent apparent abstractions, soul, soulness, and indifference indeed. Any mood out of common was afforded ground for suspicion and inquiry. Let us make a slave. What do we need? First of all, we need a black nigger man and a pregnant nigger woman and her baby nigger boy. Second, we will use the same basic principles we use in breaking a horse, combined with some more sustaining factors. What we do with horses is that we break them from one form of life to another, that we reduce them from their natural state in nature. Whereas nature provides them with the natural capacity to take care of their offspring, we break that natural string of independence from them and thereby create a dependency status so that we may be able to get from them useful production for our business and pleasure. Cardinal principles for making a Negro. For fear that our future generations may not understand the principles of breaking both of the beast together, the nigger and the horse, we understand that short range planning economics results in periodic economic chaos. So that to avoid turmoil in the economy, it requires us to have breadth and depth in long range comprehensive planning, articulating both skills, sharp perceptions. We lay down the following principles for long range comprehensive economic planning. Both horse and nigger is no good to the economy in the wild or natural state. Both must be broken and tied together for orderly production. For orderly future, special and particular attention must be paid to the female and the youngest offspring. Both must be crossbred to produce a variety and division of labor. Both must be taught to respond to a peculiar new language. Psychological and physical instruction of containment must be created for both. We hold the six cardinal principles as truth to be self evident. Based upon the following, the discourse concerning the economics of breaking and tying the horse and the nigger together, all inclusive of the six principles laid down about. Note, neither principle alone will suffice for good economics. All principles must be employed for orderly good of the nation. Accordingly, both a wild horse and a wild nature or nature nigger is dangerous even if captured. for they will have the tendency to seek their customary freedom, and in doing so, might kill you in your sleep. You cannot rest. They sleep while you are awake, and are awake while you are asleep. They are dangerous near the family house, and it requires too much labor to watch them from the house. Above all, you cannot get them to work in this natural state. Hence, both the horse and the nigger must be broken. That is the breaking them from one form of mental life to another. Keep the body, take the mind. In other words, break the will to resist. Now, the breaking process is the same for both the horse and the nigger, only slightly varying in degrees. But as we said before, there is an art in long range economic planning. You must keep your eye and thoughts on the female and the offspring of the horse and the nigger. A brief discourse on offspring development will shed light on the key to sound economic principles. Pay little attention to the generation of original breaking, but to concentrate on future generations. Therefore, if you break the female mother, she will break the offspring in its early years of development. And when the offspring is old enough to work, she will deliver it up to you. For her normal protective tendencies will have been lost in the original breaking process. For example, take the case of the wild stud horse. A female horse and already infant horse, compare the breaking process with two captured nigger males in their natural state. A pregnant nigger woman with her infant offspring. Take the stud horse, break him for limited containment. Completely break the female horse until she becomes very gentle, whereas you or anybody can ride her in comfort. Breed the mare and the stud until you have the desired offspring. Then you can turn the stud to freedom until you need him again. Train the female horse whereby she will eat out of your hand, and will turn and train the infant horse to eat out of your hand also. When it comes to breaking the uncivilized nigger, the same process, but vary the degree and step up the pressure so as to the complete reversal of the mind. Take the meanest and most restless nigger, strip him of his clothes in front of the remaining male niggers, the female and the nigger infant. Tar and feather him. Tie each leg to a different horse faced in opposite directions. Set him on fires and beat both horses. Pull him apart in front of the remaining nigger. The next step is to take a bullwhip and beat the remaining nigger male to the point of death in front of the female and the infant. Don't kill him, but put the fear of God in him, for he can be useful for future breeding. The breaking process of the African woman. Take the female and run a series of tests on her to see if she will submit to your desires willingly. Take her in every way because she is the most important factor for good economics. If she shows any signs of resistance in submitting completely to your will, do not hesitate to use the bullwhip on her to extract the last bit of resistance out of her. Take care not to kill her, for in doing so, you spoil good economic. When in complete submission, she will train her offsprings in the early years to submit to labor when they become of age. Understanding is the best thing. Therefore, we shall go deeper in this area of the subject matter concerning what we have produced here in this breaking process of the female nigger. We have reversed the relationship in her natural uncivilized state that she would have a strong dependency on the uncivilized nigger male, and she would have a limited protective tendency toward her independent male offspring, and would raise male offspring to be dependent like her. Nature had provided for this type of balance. We reversed nature by burning and pulling the civilized nigger apart and bullwhipping the other to the point of death, all in her presence. By her being left alone unprotected, the male image destroyed, the ordeal caused her to move from psychological dependent state to a frozen independent state. In this frozen psychological state of independence, she will raise her male and female offspring in reverse roles. For fear of young male's life, she will psychologically train him to be mentally weak and dependent but physically strong. Because she became psychologically independent, she will train her female offspring to be psychologically independent. What have you got? You've got a nigger woman out front and the nigger man behind and scared. This is a perfect situation of sound sleep and economic. Before the breaking process, we had to be alertly on guard at all times. It is never too late to get up off your knees and fight for, and it doesn't say right there. Now we can sleep soundly, for out of frozen fear his woman stands guard for us. He cannot get past her early slave molding process. He is a good tool, now ready to be tied to the horse at a tender age. By the time a nigger boy reaches the age of 16, he is soundly broken in and ready for a long life of sound and efficient work and the reproduction of a good unit of good labor force, continually through the breaking of uncivilized savage nigger, by throwing the nigger female savage into a frozen psychological state of independence, by killing the protective male image, and by creating a submissive, independent mind of the nigger male slave. We have created an orbiting cycle that turns on its own axis forever, unless a phenomenon occurs and reshifts the position of the male and female slaves. What we show that we mean by example. We show what we mean by example. Take the case of the two economic slave units and examine them closely. The nigger marriage. We breed two nigger males with two nigger females. Then we take the nigger males away from them and keep them moving and working. Say one nigger female bears a nigger female and the other bears a nigger male. Both nigger females being without influence of the nigger male image, frozen with an independent psychological frozen with an independent psychology will raise their offspring into reverse positions. The one with female offspring will teach her to be like herself, independent and negotiable. We negotiate with her, through her, by her. We negotiate at her will. The one with the nigger male offspring, she being frozen with the subconscious fear for his life, will raise him to be mentally dependent and weak, but physically strong. In other words, body over mind. Now, in a few years, when these two offsprings become fertile for early reproduction, we will mate and breed them and continue this cycle. That is good, sound, and long range comprehensive planning. Warning: interloping negatives. Earlier, we talked about the non economic good of the horse and the nigger in their wild state or natural state. We talked about the principle of breaking and tying them together for orderly production. Furthermore, we talked about paying particular attention to the female savage and her offspring for orderly future planning. Then, more recently, we stated that by reversing the positions of the male and female savages, we created an orbiting cycle that turns on its own axis forever, unless a phenomenon occurred and reshift and positions of the male and female savages. Our experts warned us about the possibility of this phenomenon occurring, for they say that the mind has a strong drive to correct and recorrect itself over a period of time. If I can touch some substantial original historical base, they advised us the best way to deal with the phenomena is to shave off the brute mental history and create a multiplicity of phenomena of illusions so that each illusion will twirl in its own orbit, something familiar to floating balls in a vacuum. This creating of multiplicity of phenomena of illusions entails the principle of crossbreeding the nigger and the horse we stated above, the purpose of which is to create a diversified division of labor, thereby creating different levels of labor and different values of illusion at each connecting level of labor. The results of which is the severance of the points of the original beginning for each sphere of illusion. Since we feel the subject matter may get more complicated as we proceed in laying down our economic plan concerning the purpose, reason, and effect of crossbreeding horses and nigger, we shall lay down the following definition terms for future generations. Orbiting cycle means a thing turning Orbiting cycle means a thing turning in a given path. Axis means upon which or around which a body turns. Phenomenon means something beyond ordinary conception and inspires awe and wonder. Multiplicity means a great number. Sphere means a globe. Crossbreeding means a horse, taking a horse and breeding it with an ass, and you get a dumb backward ass, long headed male that is not reproductive nor productive by itself. Crossbreeding niggers means to take so many drops of good white blood and putting them into as many nigger women as possible, varying the drops by the various tone that you want, and then letting them breed with each other until another cycle of blood appears as you desire. What this means is put the niggers and the horses in a breeding pot, mix some asses with some good white blood, and what do you get? You get a multiplicity of colors of ass backwards unusual niggers running tied to a backward ass long-headed mill, the one productive of itself, the other sterile, the one constant, the other dying. We keep the nigger constant, for we replace the mills for another tool, both mill and nigger tied together, neither knowing where the other came from and neither productive for itself nor without each other. Control the language. Crossbreeding completed. For future severance for their original beginning, we must completely annihilate the mother tongue of both the new nigger and the new mill and institute a new language that involves the new life's work of both. You know, language is a peculiar institution. It leads to the heart of a people. The more foreign, the more a foreigner knows about the language of another country, the more he is able to move through all levels of society. Therefore, if the foreigner is an enemy of the country, to the extent that he knows the body of the language, to the extent is the country vulnerable to attack or invasion of a foreign culture. For example, if you take a slave and teach him all about your language, he will know all your secrets. Then he is no more a slave, for you can't fool him any longer. For example, if you told a slave that he must perform in getting out of our crops, he knows the language well. He would know that our crops didn't mean our crops and that slavery system would break down, for he would relate on the basis of what our crops really meant. So you have to be careful in setting up new language, for the slaves would soon be in your house talking to you man to man, and that is the death of your economic system. In addition, the definition of words terms are only a minute part of the process. Values are created and transported by communication through the body of the language. A total society has many interconnected value systems. All the values in the society have bridges of the language to connect them for orderly working in the society. But for these language bridges, these many value systems would sharply clash and cause internal strife or civil war. The degree of the conflict being determined by the magnitude of the issues or relative opposing strength in whatever form. For example, if you put a slave in a hog pen and train him to live there and incorporate in him to value it as a way of life completely, the biggest problem you would have of him is that he would worry you about provisions to keep the hog pen clean, or the same hog pen and make a slip and incorporate something in his language whereby he comes to value a house more than he does his hog pen. You got a problem. He will soon be in your house. It is never too late to get up off your knees and fight. That's how it ends. So I'm not even going to keep going over this letter. I'm just going to just shut that down, and then I'm going to talk to you face to face about it. I think that'll be a little more conducive. Wait a second. Shut that down. So here we are. Hello, everybody. Good evening. So, first, let me explain several things. Um, Many people talk about that letter and they speak on it, um, but they never really actually like show it to people or try to pull up the text of it, uh, without trying to be too quickly and in too much haste. But I don't want to spend my whole night talking about that letter, but I do want to talk about some of the things that are from the letter that you would have to really realize never worked the way that they wanted it to. Uh, Number one, there's no way that white men believe that that mixed breed children were infertile. They knew that I mean that's silly. That's a childish notion. Uh, when they compare the mulatto to a mule who is infertile by choice, slaves on the plantation, whether that be a man or a woman that's birthed from the loins of a white man or the loins of a black man through a white woman or a black woman on the plantation, by choice, slaves actually wouldn't have chosen the mixed breed person to procreate with and make children with. So the natural process that he was talking about is that these black people would have naturally stayed together and made children with one another. So when you even hear about the mixed breed people breeding into the bloodline, these are normally people that they force to breed with somebody, because you can't make somebody, like, you can't make somebody do that. Like, you have to really understand how it all works. Uh the scheme, though, you see, it all plays into eugenics and how unhealthy all that is. It plays into Jim Crow. Um there's so many different things that I could talk about, but the most important thing I think is, first, he's not a slave owner from America. He's from the West Indies. Secondly, is that he made the distinction early on between black people who have fine hair and black people who have coarse hair. The reason why this is important is because you must understand that many of the women that the slave owners were desiring, that were black women with fine hair. You must, please, you must understand this. I know there's many instances of women with coarse hair being victims or being willing participants, but you would have to truly, really appreciate what I'm saying to you right now, is that this really encompasses everything that I've been saying for a long time. All black people are not genetically the same, and a white so-called racist who they got the term lynching, though he didn't believe in hanging slaves. So the term lynching is more akin to tar and feathering and pulling black men to pieces and beating and bludgeoning them almost to nothing. Raping the women when you could. If you couldn't rape her, then you beat the hell out of her and let her stay alive. Right. So this creates the narrative that they never protected us, because for all the women who didn't get raped, who didn't allow white men access between their legs, that would create a natural resentment that you can't protect me, because if you try to, you'll get killed like the other ones have been killed. So this creates this feeling of, I have to raise my son to not get killed like his father got killed or like his father's father was killed. I have to teach my daughter to be independent so that way she doesn't become a whore and a concubine for this punk ass slave owner. See, understand the underlying issue there, or understanding the real psychology that was created, gives rise to my understanding. See, this is why I can speak on the issue the way I do. Outside of that, this letter, it's not really a blueprint to anything. See, what it showed you is that divide and conquer has gone on for thousands of years. What he was saying about the Romans is that the Romans should have used divide and conquer versus the barbarians, as opposed to allowing the barbarians to come into their civilization. See, it doesn't go about that in the letter, because this is what the Romans did. The Romans allowed them to come into to essentially come into their home and negotiate with them man to man. It was the death of the Romans. Not just the death of the economic system, but the death of the Romans. So the Willie Lynch letter is essentially a warning against the death of who? Right. Those who are in power. The reason why I bring this up is because it's an endless scheme. It's one that never ends. It's one that has no bounds. Right. This is why they hate it, because it is not something that they want to talk about. There's a lot of different things that I'd like to talk about with white heaven. See, because if I get stuck there, then I won't bring this up, and I have to talk about this, which is very important. Each one of these, even if it has a different name, there it's white heaven is the rapture that already happened. It is this endless scheme that you're watching. It is great white hope and black despair. It's all those things. White heaven isn't just one thing. It is a miasma. It is a stench of so many different things combined in one. It's not just one thing. So when I call it something different, I want you to understand that it's still white heaven. That's why it's white heaven before that. Anything I put there, it all goes together. It does not go against each other. No piece of it is meant to not fit together. This is their heaven that we live in. Only in your heaven can you say, I want to implement a scheme that allows for us to keep a people suppressed based on fear. That's it. Fear and fear alone. And then hopefully we break enough of the women to become willing participants into our scheme. Wow. This is why if you watch old school movies from the 70s, black exploitation films, and I've seen so many of them, this is why the mother is normally adversarial to the son who is the rebel. And the father is normally the broken buck. So you have to watch it to really understand. There's so many different movies like this. The Last Come Down is a very good one. That's with Billy D. Williams. And long story short, he's a black dude with a white chick, trusting white people too much, and it cost him his ass. But his mother was the quintessential example of what this letter was talking about. And his father was a prime example of what the letter spoke of. You see? And this is why they wanted a broken buck, right? And a very strong, independent woman to be the head, because he's not going to do anything but what she negotiates. She'll negotiate with us at will, at our desire, or at her desire. You see what I'm saying? But the one thing I wanted y'all to notice was, did you not see how they said that the white man became proficient at reading the body language of their slaves? Because they had to learn, okay, he's not drinking, he's not parlaying with the rest of the slaves, he's not doing what the other slaves are doing. What is he planning? Oh, I have to flog him. I got to break him down because he might be trying to do something. And this is the process that he's talking about. This is the endless scheme. So now that we're out of the hard bondage, how do they continue to do this? Easy. They pull you over with the police, right? You see? And now they don't flog you, they just shoot you to death. You understand? Because if you do something, right now, listen, because the women want to tell the man to calm down, but the man should actually defend himself and fight for his life. But because the woman has told this man to calm down, right? He's calmed down. Now the police officer feels at will and at ease to take this man's life and kills him. This is how white heaven goes. You see, this is why he said that it tilts on its own axis, because it would change no matter how complicated it got. And see, once the what you think is colorism, right? It can't be colorism. It's fake, because he didn't say which one you showed favor to, right? He didn't say who you picked, you choose. So if you wanted dark-skinned slaves to be the order of the day, that's all you had to do, and then oppress your light-skinned ones, and then make your light-skinned slaves hate the dark-skinned slaves, or vice versa, or breed a medium-toned slave between the two, right? And all that good white drops. Let's not talk about all the good black drops that were put into white women, right? And those bastard mulattoes that were sometimes forced onto the plantation. And seldom opportunities and chances were they sent elsewhere and given a life that that a mulatto would be grateful for, because to breed with a regular white person would be far too much to ask for. But maybe you get to go and be with a quadroon daughter or son of another one of these plantation owners who's around the same age, or doesn't matter. This is who you're going to go be with, though. Understand, the letter doesn't cover all that. The letter doesn't say all that. These are things that you, as a person, you have to infer and know that this is what they wanted you to not really look at. See, they don't want you to look at the letter. They just want you to hear about the letter and then go from there. But did you hear what the biggest fear was? Was that the natural balance would shift itself back. So as opposed to black men focusing on that part of the letter, they focus on everything else. And they hone in on something that is so negative that you can't even get anything positive out of that. But I took that gold lining in that dark cloud, which is the natural balance, the mind, the soul of a person has in itself the ability to correct something that is naturally wrong. This is why now you hear so much dialogue between black men and black women. At first, it was very angry because they didn't know how to come to the table with one another. Now they're starting to see that I'm not going to make it without you. Mind you, now let's talk about that ass backward meal thing, who was led by the long face meal. See, it's pretty much talking about a mulatto being the buffer class, who's the long faced one who leads the other ass backwards one, who's like, well, am I white or am I black? Am I white or am I black? Because the white people treat me better than they treat the black people, but they never really fully accept me, right? And the black people are more accepting of me, but I don't want to be one of them. I want to be white. See, this is how they think. But because it's not broken down once again in the letter, people don't know how to look at that. I'm trying to give psychology to it. I'm trying to give a physical human base to it without getting too carried away. But the letter deserved to be elaborated upon. Now, this endless scheme that I'm talking about, this endless scheme is more than this letter. It's much bigger than this letter, you see, because before this letter was ever devised or implemented, slavery had already been implemented. So it would have never, it wouldn't have mattered if Willie Lynch came here or not. Slavery would have lasted as long as it lasted. The Civil War still would have happened. All you can say about the Willie Lynch letters is that after slavery had so-called ended, is that it gave the most ambitious white men and women a crutch, if you will, a mental crutch, because they still realize that, oh, we can use the good old tool of divide and conquer if all else fails. And this is what we're in now. This is part of the endless scheme. See, but divide and conquer not being what the people believe it is. The divide and conquer being, if I said that there's a fine hair black person and a coarse hair black person, they've divided the groups of people who were naturally supposed to be with themselves from amongst each other. See, when it says the Negro and the horse, that's what it's talking about. That's what it's really talking about. The horse are the fine hair black people, and the Negro, yes, is the coarse one. Don't let them think. Don't let them get you to thinking that the horse is the white man. The horse is not the white man. Can you dig it? This is why you have people who are so confused now, because there are black people who are aboriginal to the land and black people who are not. But one who has this sense of indignation to want to fight the white man to take back what is rightfully his, and this other person who doesn't have that proclamation within themselves, you're going to be at odds. When we force them to make children with each other, right, it creates an even more ass backwards person. Right. We continue this process. it never fully takes it can never fully take root, but they understand that as long as they keep you fighting each other, keep us fighting ourselves, keep the dark skinned people fighting the dark skinned people, regardless of their genetic background, then they won't question, well, what kind of black person am I for real? Once again, why would there be a distinction between fine hair and coarse hair? Why would he even know that? If he didn't know the difference, if all niggers are the same, why would he even bring that to bear? And don't say that, oh, because those are black people who were mixed with white blood, because there are dark skinned people now who have no white blood in them who have fine hair. So this is something that people have never ever actually been versed with. It's never been put in front of them. It's never actually, they've never had to actually face it. So because they don't have to face it, they can actually look past what I'm saying and say, well, you know what, that doesn't mean anything. But this endless scheme, though, you see, like I said, it started so long before that. It started with the Portuguese in the 1500s. It started with the Spaniards in the late 1400s. There's no real way to say who's to blame. You know, all of them are in on it. The strange Negro that they brought to the Americas. Strange being the key word here. It's something that black people have yet to embrace, that you are not normal to the land. There are black people who are indigenous to this land. See, I could never tell you why it is that they don't want to believe that the black people that were found at particular junctions of earth, and I'm talking about Negroes, not just all black skinned people, but Negroes who are found in particular parts of the earth. Once again, they have no faith. So to tell them that Pangea was around and then the Tower of Babel, whatever they call it, causes this cataclysmic event. These people are dispersed, the planet is divided, and come from the depths of the earth all these other people who had different physical features. People don't want to hear that, they don't want to believe that. So it's hard to tell them where these people came from. But it's easy for me to say it because I know that's the truth. What's hard for people to accept is that you've been forced to believe that all black people, once again, are the same. And the endless scheme has never stopped. It's to get you to believe that you are all the same, that we are all the same. That's the scheme. That's the real hit to the Willie Lynch letters. Is we have to get them to think that they are all the same. We want the mule, the ass, and the horse to believe that they are all one creature. If we get them to believe this, then they will accept their lot in life and they will never fight for anything else. They won't, there will be no desire for anything else. I wanted to talk about that whole one drop rule. I'm not even gonna go to the websites and all that nonsense. I just wanted to just bring it to forbearance just real quick. If they say that one drop of Negro blood makes you black, then there could be no drops of white blood that change anything. Do you understand? Right. You would have to mate with that black woman and give her babies. And there must know you can't control what the shade of the baby's going to be. You don't live that long. Right. You got to understand this. That's not how the human body works. That's not how biology works. None of these things that they're contesting work like that. So unless Willie Lynch was a real scientist back then, he seemed like a dude who was like out of touch with how things really actually work. with the biology of a person. Maybe that's just me. These are just small things that I look at and I pick at. And I say, I don't know about that. Eugenics. Nobody questions the fact that eugenics was dropped 1 year after Mr. Charles Darwin himself died, 1 year before the death of the biggest adversary to Charles Darwin, Mr. Gregor Mendel himself, and that eugenics was using some of the ideas that Gregor Mendel had proposed and put forth. Now, why this is important is because eugenics talked about people being in the position that they were in because they were of good genetic stock. Now, while this is probably seemingly unconnected or in no way, shape, or form related, they're actually very, very closely related. See, the Willie Lynch concept, right? A man from the West Indies, but if he gave homage to the king, that means that he's a man who was from, right, Britain or somewhere of that general locale. Well, why is that important? Where's Chucky D from? Right. Where's his cousin from? The Felton character, George Fulton or something like that, whatever that guy's name is. You guys get what I'm talking about right now? So these are all people who are all from the same region of the world, producing something that has not really actually ever been looked at as like a contingent effort. You know, they don't say that what Charles Darwin did is based in any way of understanding what what Willie Lynch may have been trying to do, you know, because if you listen to a guy like Charles Darwin will tell you about selective breeding. You know, he'll tell you about natural selection. So the question is that if a white man forces himself onto a black woman, is that selective breeding or is that natural selection? The same thing as if a white woman forces herself onto a black man, is that selective breeding or is that natural selection? I have to know. And the reason why I ask that is because you would have a person who would say, well, they're part of the talented 10, but they're, I don't know, 1/3 or maybe even half something other than black. And they're saying how talented they are, but yet maybe they're propped up on money that comes from people who were in forced servitude. And somehow, once again, this is why I'm trying to say that Charles Darwin's theory was a way to try to justify slavery. Right. His cousin followed him up by trying to justify slavery ever more with eugenics, by trying to say that your lot in life was based on how strong your gene pool was. So if you had strong genes, that's why you had money. But he didn't bother to talk about slavery being a major part of society, of the world society, right? For hundreds of years before that, that put certain people in a position far above others. And all the different skullduggerous activities that took place with all these people. See, their endless scheme is to get you and I to believe that we wanted to be around them, that we've always wanted to be their equals. But if you're listening to the Willie Lynch letters, he said that the black man's first initiative is to run away and be free. So what does that mean? Is that the black man, if he could, if the black woman would get out of his way, would look for his freedom. And I'm not saying that's all black women. I'm just speaking to the nature of the letter. And the nature of the letter is speaking to that. Now, many people don't want to hear this because it changes many dynamics, changes a lot of dynamics, changes almost every dynamic as how they act within their life. Right. He said that we have gotten these women to forego pretty much their motherly senses, teach their sons to be dependent and weak, but strong. This is why these guys who get these jobs, right? These high paying jobs, doing anything, right? Yeah, he goes to the gym and works out, but he'll never start his own business. He doesn't have the mental constitution for that. Yeah, he went to the NFL, but it wasn't him who got him to start his own business. It was his agent who said you should start your own business. You understand what I'm talking about? Like there's another man thinking like these are people who aren't their own men. They can't think for themselves. They actually need someone else to think for them. This is true story. That endless scheme that we're working within, that we're living within, it doesn't stop there. Because it has to go forward with this stuff and it has to say, well, all right, well, we got these black people thinking that as long as they act a certain way, we're going to accept them. We got these other black people knowing no matter what they do, we'll never accept it. So long as we keep those two fighting with each other, our problems are minimal. The ones who want to go along to get along with us, for the most part, be these black folks who are either so broken that they have no sense of self-reliance, right? And they are totally dependent. And this is what the white man wants: is he wants to act like he's sick, that you need him, but really in the back of his mind, he's like, got him right where I want him. I'm trying to tell you, it's evil and it's wicked. But people don't see it like that. Evil and wicked. Laughs about it. Like a fucking mad genius. Because they know that they got you. Because they know that they got you. They said, yep, got that ass. Isn't it isn't it diabolical, bro? Come on, man. Isn't it? It's diabolical, bro. You perfect word. You couldn't have picked a better word to describe how heinous they are. Because, man, what else is there to say that they've made a situation to where what men would normally do, which is try to defend themselves. Their natural defense mechanism would tell them we have to leave the country. I'm saying? Oh no, bro. I mean, it's just this is one that's been on my heart and soul for a while, you know. I had thought I had talked about the Willie Lynch letters, but I had went to go look back at some of my old videos. Excuse me, with the White Heaven, and I realized I hadn't actually talked about it at all. So pulled it up and I read the whole thing, you know. And as unexciting as that was, it just shed light on it just shed so much light on the situation of things that I've been trying to point out and make clear for black people for so long, you know, because it's easy for black people to say, the Willie Lynch letters is, you know, that's what they use to this day. But it's like, it's more than that. You know, the Willie Lynch letters don't have anything to do with patents. You understand? And the fact that they wouldn't let a slave have one. The Willie Lynch letter has no thing to do with that. All right? You know? I mean, well, but that's the dynamic that we're gonna go through, though, y'all. You know, is so. Let me hit all one thing at a time. I'm pretty sure we did talk Willie Lynch. If not me and you, man, so many different things we've done in the past, bro. You know, just speaking on so many different real things. Uh, I can't I can't bring my mind to bear to it right now, but I know I've talked about Willie Lynch before with many good brothers like yourself, so there's no surprise there. And for the fact that it's come full circle, where there's a video where like people can get mad and say, "Oh, that's another one of those fake letters. That's another one of those falsified letters." Understanding the language that's intended is more important than the legitimacy of what they're trying to claim, because this is what they want to do to this day. This is why you see so many commercials with the black man dating the mixed chick or dating the non-black woman with straight hair, or the black woman with naturally straight like hair, right? Who supposed to be black, but that's an aboriginal or a black Indian, you know. Uh uh they hate me for saying it because there's no excuse, you know. There's no excuse. If a white dude 307 years ago knew the difference between a fine hair Negro and a coarse hair Negro, I have to say that man, they in trouble. People are in trouble. You know, I mean, it's it's wickedly evil what was implemented, because when you add in the fact that the white man and the white woman both have given children to either one of these fine hair or coarse hair Negroes, those children then allowed to procreate. Some of them been killed off on the plantation. That's another reason why this is another reason why they used to protect their little mixed breeds, is because the slaves would just kill them. Little do people know, right on, until they were forced after slavery to accept these type of people. Until this is why that number of people was never large until now. Y'all have to understand this. The Civil War, I've already said it. They used the Civil War to kill off who knows how many mixed breed people. It's phenomenal. Really a shame. After that, 100 years later, civil rights, bam. Then if you look at the numbers of interracial marriages from then on, it shows it. Damn, there's there's so much going on. Yet Thandie Newton is one of those straight hair black native people. Yet Thandie Newton is a very excellent example. And hell, if you think about there's a few different ones, you know. It's crazy how it all goes, though. Um, it really is crazy, because this is a scheme. The scheme is a device, and it's not just a sorry ass letter. It's Jim Crow, because Jim Crow has nothing to do with Willie Lynch. I don't think people understand. Jim Crow was inspired by a minstrel act that was meant to be slanderous or insulting to indigenous Black Americans. Beloved is about a demon. Beloved was a demon. She was a demon in the movie. In the end, if you don't remember real quick, but she wasn't really not like a normal human. There was something wrong with her. You know what I'm saying? She was a demon. That's what I remember. But anyway, Uh, uh, and that was another movie with freaking Danny Glover being made to be a skullduggerous Negro. Uh, yeah, yeah. Beloved is a crazy movie. Yeah, come on, man. Right. The whole thing. We can't wait for it all to be ended and to be over. But this their scheme, it doesn't stop until they realize that it doesn't work. You see what I'm saying? Because like the letter said, these people will eventually correct them. It's going to correct itself. The need for the man to lead and the woman to follow is going to correct itself. And notice the language, savage, uncivilized savage. But he called the same uncivilized man that he called an uncivilized nigger. He went on to call him civilized after he was dead, after he was killing them. Oh, he's civilized because he was going to do the right thing for his people, but he's uncivilized because he's going against my economic scheme. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. See, they know the difference. And do you hear how vicious it was? A lynching is pulling somebody to pieces after they've been tarred and feathered, and then beating the fuck out of the next person right next to them, so that way everybody knows this is what will happen to you if you get out of line. Man, the real story of how slavery really went is crazy, bruh. Crazy. Crazy. But they get mad at me for calling it white heaven. Is that not where we live? Is there anyone who doesn't agree that this isn't white heaven? Or do they really think it's America? Whatever that name is. Or can we all agree that this is white heaven? Yeah. It was straight savage, like the strip, just like the scripture said. It was savage. It was savage. No love shown to the old, nor to the young, nothing. People can say you feel whatever, but y'all know better, and that's what you guys have got to be knowing. Every time you go out here, you're literally in their dream world. You're living in like a physical virtual reality because the consequences that they should incur, they haven't. Everything is like make believe to these dudes, man. I can't even put it in words like how unbelievable they are. You know, that's how unbelievable they are. I mean, let me give you a prime example. They're so unbelievable that I know a guy right now, other than myself, who's going through a little bit of a legal situation. But in his legal situation, you see, it involves children. And when I say no, it's just the character I've been seeing at court. But when I first met him, dude told me just like this. Dude said, "Yeah, I'm gonna go get a lawyer, and I'm gonna see about what my lawyer says or what the lawyer's gonna say about my situation, because he has 2 kids. Now, what I tried to tell bro was before you get a lawyer, you should try to exercise everything you can yourself so that way you save yourself a little bit of money. Long story short, short story shorter, he did half of that. He did a little bit by himself, but he still went and got the lawyer. Uh, Now, when I was at court this last time, I didn't see him, but he's not full black, right? He's like half black. And the chick he's with, she's not white. I don't think I don't. I'm not sure if she's Hispanic or if she's like Middle Eastern, but like she's brown skin with straight hair, right? And dude, dude, dude is a good person from what I understand. He just has another chick, and that chick can't take it, and she doesn't want the kids to be around his new girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? And he's going through a situation like that. Now, what I want y'all to understand is this right here: is that whenever you're a black person of any degree, I don't to whatever they distinguish a black person being, you're always going to have it harder. You understand? Than anybody else is getting what you deserve. The only time you as a black person will have it, I won't even say easy, but it might be effortless, is when the opposite party is so wrong, they're all the way wrong, and they have no defense to their actions. Now, I pray that everything works out for this dude, right? I might or might not see him again going to court, but I'm pretty sure I will because I'm pretty sure my next time going to court won't be my last time going to court. So there's a good chance I might run into him. But anyway, uh, it's just one of those things where injustice reigns high at so many different levels. Where I understand he's not full black, but the court system couldn't care less. To them, he's a nigger. And not only that, but she has straight hair. So you guys got to understand how this shit plays out on on levels where people don't even look at it like this. See what I'm saying? So you're everything is the Willie Lynch letter. It's not just one facet of life. And that and when they were talking about breaking the man and breaking the woman, that was for that environment. You don't have to fucking tie no horse to no man's leg and tar feather him and all that stuff. They don't do that. They don't have to do that. They do other things. They do things like give a person 80 years in prison. And that normally makes people be like, yeah, well, I don't want to get 80 years. So standing up and doing the right thing just ain't worth it. It makes it simple. In this land, you will always be judged for who you are and what you look like. White heaven is built on that. But you got to understand, though, he was trying to teach them how to build the foundation for white heaven. You know what I'm saying? He was trying to get them to build the foundation to have an actual heaven. Because, like he said, y'all can't sleep peaceful knowing that these niggas got some of that shit in them. They got some of that hatred in them. Does that make sense? Turn their women into your protectors. Because he's mentally weak. So this is why you have so many different situations where men would normally do the right thing, Oh, of course. Yeah. It's most definitely how they stay on code. But they learn it, but they learn it before that because we see it's like they bombarded us with images of them. They bombard the images of them being righteous and pious and the good people. But that's the whole point though, brother. That's the whole point of their endless scheme is that they know what they did was wrong. They know it. There's not a it's not a question as to if it was wrong. They know what they did was wrong. The Willie Lynch letters exposes that too, where he's like, yeah, we're every hour of this, every moment of this shit is wrong, and we know it's wrong. So pretty much we're on guard because what would I do to somebody doing this to me? Right. So these dudes already knew. Come on. But if you combine a Willie Lynch concept with some eugenics, with some Darwinianism, with some Jim Crow, come on, man, you got a filthy cocktail. When I say you got a filthy cocktail, you got a cocktail that don't nobody want to sip of, that don't nobody want to drink of at all. Because they've never had to stop hating you with the level of hatred that they've hated you with. It's just changed form. Okay, we can't beat you on the back anymore. All right, you can't come anywhere where we can come. Whites only. They made it exclusive. And what did you do? You wanted to find out what it was that was so special. Right. And I'm not saying you literally, I'm saying you figuratively, black people. Because that's what we do. We want to figure it out. But we didn't let it go. And we should have let it go. But the fine hair and the coarse hair Negro aren't the same. They think differently. You got one who was chasing after their white benefactor. Then you had another one who was trying to get away from them. The one who was trying to get away from them was being led by the one who was chasing after the white benefactor. Wow. Can you say wickedly evil? Right. Now, a lot of people don't want to hear that a lot of the black people that were chasing after the natural approval for white people were black people who had naturally fine hair. Because it's easier for them to say, I'm more like you, boss. See, I got hair that's almost just like you, boss. I'm just dark. I'm a dark version of you, boss. Right. That would cause for resentment and envy to be built up in the coarse hair Negroes. Maybe even the desire for a man with coarse hair to straighten his hair, or a woman with coarse hair to straighten her hair. However, I've been saying this shit for so long that it's like, I wonder how many times I'm going to say it. You know what I mean? Before one day, more than you guys appreciate it. You guys appreciate it. That's why you listen to me. That's why you guys deal with me. But the other people don't appreciate what I'm saying. They can't even follow. But do you see how deep that is? That the fine hair Negro was for sure, believe it or not, the fine hair Negro was the one that they used, even though that's the horse. The fine hair black person was the one that they used to cause and sow seeds of discord among brethren and sistren. Easy. And then once you get You're funny. I'm gonna check that out. I'll check it out. I like that. But it's just the I just want to point all, to all the different little things. Like once again, Jim Crow is not Willie Lynch. Jim Crow is a whole nother thing. Whole another thing, and has no thing to do with uh uh Willie Lynch. Willie Lynch and Jim Crow are totally separate, you know, and they're about 150 years apart, 155 years apart, but they're not even close to being related. What? No, what? You're funny. You're funny, sister. I just try to just point it all out as to what it is. You know, life is a life is a life is what's the word I'm looking for? It's not just challenging. It's life is marvelous. You know, life is marvelous. I just want y'all, man, to just really just be, safe and careful out there because they've got a lot of black people who they don't realize, everybody not the same. I've been stressing it for a long time. One branch of slaves, of descendant of slaves, is not the same as the other. One people has um, legitimate claim to the land. Some people have uh, no claim to the land, but they obviously were enslaved. And some people are a blood mix of both of those peoples. And when you have that dynamic, this is why it's so hard for black people to just uproot and want to leave because of the people that are like them who should want to leave. Half of their blood is rooted in this country. So they don't have the initiative to just get up and say, you know what, I'm out of here. Because they're biologically linked to land. Hard for people to understand something like that. This is normally why people don't leave. And I'm not talking about black people now, but this is why people just in general, on earth will not leave somewhere, even though there's a tragedy taking place. They'll stay there. They're like, forget that. I'd rather die in my home. Oh, I know. Look, I know everybody here is ready to rock out of here and be like, look, it's been nice, America. It's been nice. Sweet dreams. I know we're all ready to do that one, but there's other people who are important to the to the grander scheme that also must be ready to leave, and some of them aren't ready to leave yet. They haven't had, they haven't been beat down enough yet, Andre. Believe it or not, there are people who have not suffered enough. All right, I know that sounds like horrible and wrong, but that's the reality. It's like they just haven't suffered enough, so they don't want to leave. You know, They're like, go where? That's what they're saying to themselves. Go where? Where am I going to go? And then I know how they feel about that because there's nowhere on earth that respects us. So we're waiting for black people could black people could never get what they deserve from these people. They owe us everything. They owe us all. I've been saying that shit for a long time. They owe me all. And since these punk ass niggas ain't gonna come up off of everything, I don't know. I forget. I might have been talking to Andre yesterday. I might have been talking to Jeff. I was like, for my restitution, for my reparations, nigga, I would need like $1 trillion by myself. Just at least that's on the strength. That's on the strength and the muscle. I need a whole trillion. They're like, yeah, we got this nigga thinking way too big. And I'm like, do you know how much $1 trillion is? I'm like, I need all that. So just in case you try to fuck anybody else, right, 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 right. Y'all laugh, but look, look. I'm so serious. I need like $1 trillion. I need that. So that way, just in case you try to fuck people off and fuck people around, we can still break off all those, you feel me? All those people who I know are really turf Negroes. I'm not worried about look, all these cats who want to claim Aboriginal hood, let them niggas fight for the land. You feel me? All right. All right. That was Jeff then. Jeff laughed about it too. Man, bro, I hear you. I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you. All 100,000%. I am with you. You know, they hate us so much that the only scheme that they could come up with was to make people who are already not the same think they're the same. Now that's wicked. Then on top of that, make them fight to believe that natural occurrences within their gene pool are not natural. So you're dark skinned and he's lighter skinned, but you both have the same mother and father, and she's never been accosted by a white man. Right. And both of your parents are medium tone skin. And people are like, well, why is he darker? Why is he lighter? And then somebody wants to say, oh, the master must have slept with it. But no, that's not the case. It's because these people had people in their gene pool who match that same phenotype or physical appearance that the people would have been looking at right then and there. It's an insult for everybody to think that white people got to infect black people's bloodline on such a level that nobody knows who and what they really fucking are. Please, man, get real. Get real. That's why I always say black and white skin and white and black skin. I'm building up my confidence to do my permanent blackface video. It's gonna be vicious. So, you know, I'm gonna have to have a little disclaimer. Mixed breed people are gonna probably not want to watch it because, it's not gonna be pretty. You know, permanent blackface has everything to do with them wanting black men to sleep with white women, and and for white men to sleep with black women. It has everything to do with that, and I'm gonna break down how permanent blackface really works. You see what I'm saying? You know, I know I talks a lot of shit. Excuse my language. I know I talk a lot of trash to people. I already know. And Ezra does talk about this. Nehemiah talks about it. If you read certain parts of the book, the Chronicles, it talks about it. A few of the prophets actually go all in. A few of the prophets actually go all in on putting away the strange children and what strange children did. I mean, but if you want to be if you want to be technical, my entire message from the very beginning was about strange children. My whole message from the very get-go was about strange children, but that's neither here nor there, you know. But it's done a full circle move. Done a full circle move. So what if I told you guys that this endless scheme is the same thing with the strange children? A straight-haired black person is not an Israelite, dog. There's not ain't nobody gonna tell me that they are. They're not going to tell me that. I'm not hearing it. Right. So who do you think the mules were? The strange children? Right. Because it takes a horse and a donkey to do that. Can you dig it? So they were comparing black people to donkeys and the straight haired people to what? To the horses. Come on. And they had what? Strange children. The mule, supposed to be infertile. But obviously, we know that mixed breed people are not infertile. Right. But they are capable of producing people that are mentally disabled at a much higher rate than black people ever produce them. See, no offense to Mr. Willie Lynch, but the real reason why his letter is not really a big deal, because his letter didn't talk about how they were going to end morons in white society. As long as the white man has to worry about the moron that plagues him, we have nothing to worry about. I put my top, middle, and bottom dollar on that one, my people. Facts. Facts. I get ready to press my way away from this one, because this has been a fun one. I like this one. I like this one. I've already talked about all the other stuff. So what else? Oh, the Rockefellers. Come on. Let's just hit his ass real quick. You think the Rockefellers didn't use something like a Willie Lynch type model as to who they picked and allowed into their housing projects? Come on. Come on. See, little do a lot of people know, light-skinned black people have been discriminated against for a long time. Long time. Because the first thing dark-skinned black people are going to say is, oh, they got a white person in the family. Just by looking at them. White people still going to call them a nigger. Double end of the sword. I'm going to give the dark-skinned black man the housing. You tell that light-skinned nigga he better get his ass to work. Right. Light-skinned brothers have had the same problems that dark-skinned brothers have had, that medium-tone brothers have. It's all the same. It's all the same. But because people don't want to see it that way, they want to assume that light-skinned dudes have just always been on easy street. Man, it couldn't be further from the truth. It couldn't be further from the truth. If anything, they've never trusted the light-skinned dudes. Because it's normally one of them light-skinned dudes or medium-toned dudes who are about to step up and do something. Right. Martin Luther King is he's not blurple. Malcolm X ain't blurple. Fred Hampton ain't blurple. Stokely Carmichael ain't blurple. Man, I can name a litany of black leaders who are not blurple. Even Khalid Muhammad wasn't that dark, and I didn't even fuck with Khalid Muhammad. But just to give you a reference to a darker skinned brother who people look at as a leader, right? Still not blurple. You can't name one of them. You can't name one blurple, super duper dumb black leader that has led black people to anything ever. Because number one, it'll never happen. Number one, it'll never happen. So who do you think have been the real house niggas for forever? See, they want you when you watch the movies. This is part of the scheme. Part of the Willie Lynch scheme is when you watch the movies, they want you to believe that light-skinned dudes are all house niggas and that none of them were in the field. The only movie that even touched that light-skinned dudes could be in the field was Django. Only movie I've ever seen. Oh, come on. You already know, bro. Now, see, but that's the thing, though. The half breeds get to play politic and like they're really black people, like they're a tribe of their own. This shit is crazy. Like they can just recreate people who look like them at will. It doesn't work like that. We all know it doesn't work like that. But we got to realize though that the half breed had a crazy ass life way back then too. You know, depending on the level of status of the plantation that you were born on as a half breed, depending on whether or not your ass was going to be working on the plantation and living life as a slave, or if you was going to be able to your mama or your pappy was going to be able to get you off that plantation, right, and have you sent up north where things were a little easier, right, to go stay with one of their relatives. Just true story. No bullshit. You know, but when you talk about the half breeds, you know what I'm talking about, like we still have to talk about we're used to a certain type of half breed. Most people have never seen a mixed person who has a straight hair black mother and a white person, but I have. And those children look white. They look white all the time. They look like white people. They look like white people with like who might be Asian or something like that. But they'd be like, "Oh, I'm mixed. My mom is black or my dad is black," and he'd be like, "Man, this is a white person." Every once in a while, you have brothers who have coarse hair, who have mixed children, who have hair that lays down more than it stands up. So, when two flat hair people make a baby, the baby gonna have flat hair, right? Right. If the person with flat hair was, let's say, my skin tone, and they have babies with the white person, the child that comes out is gonna look like one of those straight haired Indian people with red skin, sometimes white looking skin. But because they killed off so many people, it's crazy. It's crazy. In 100-year period, they killed over 56 million people. I need y'all to really wrap your heads around that. In 100-year period, they killed 56 million people, at least here in the Americas alone. Oh, you don't think none of those Negroes have fine hair? Come on, man. They killed off a lot of these people. They murked so many of them out. And some of them they bred out using who? Us. 56 million, that's the number that they give us. I'm thinking it's probably closer to 100 million, 200 million. Yep. They already know. Whenever I see a number like that, I automatically multiply it. This is that rule that you would do with the chick that you don't know, and she's telling you how many guys she slept with. So whenever you deal with white people, you know what I mean? You just go ahead and multiply by like 4 or 5, you know, not times 3. When you're dealing with white people, at least 4 or 5. I normally go fivefold because they're liars. And the full seven, you can never go wrong with them. I would never be surprised if they killed somewhere to the tune of, I don't know, 500,000,000 people. It would never surprise me. It would never surprise me. How are you going to prove that they did it? All those people are dead. Right. Come on. They killed the buffalo to starve the people out so that way those nations of Native Americans would be forced. Some of them would abandon their pride and say, okay, white man, I give up. The other ones would try to go and attack the white man. Many of them would lose their lives like that. Come on. Come on. Now, they don't want to say that. I'm not going to talk about that. And once again, how many of these black skinned Native Americans do you think had fine hair? Come on. Say that then. Say that then. How many of them with straight hair do you think had dark skin? All right, say that then. When Steven held up his hand in the movie Django and said, honest engine, do y'all think he said that? Mocking somebody? No, Steven was a fucking black Indian. Right. And people have no concept of it. Because it's a movie, they can ignore it and overlook it, bypass it. It's only entertainment. There's nothing factual there for the people. There's no truth or honesty there for the people. Not realizing Eskimo Joe, same situation, a black Indian. Appreciate what it is that they tell you when they tell you things. All Willie Lynch did was tell you that he knew that all black people weren't the same. And because I know they're not the same, I can make that work for me in my favor. Right. Right. Because his plan didn't say admixture mulatto Negroes. No, he said fine hair and coarse hair. That's how he defined it. That's how he could tell them apart. That's how he knew what their genealogy was. Mm, mm. And yet people don't even see it like that. They see it some whole other way. Don't worry, the scheme is coming to an end one day, just not today. When the scheme does come to an end, black people are going to have to be willing to move on. Once again, take what's yours, my friends, when it can be taken. Until then, wait for your moment and abide by their rules. Because while we live in this land, there are too many women who are still too independent to be trusted, and too many men that are mentally weak and physically strong, and they cannot be depended upon. My brothers and my sisters, I say these things so that way you may know who it is that you are dealing with at all times. Just because they look big and strong doesn't mean that they are strong in their mind. And just because she acts independent doesn't mean that she wants to be independent. I'm saying that to say this, that he does want to be a provider and she does want to be protected. But until you take the reins and put them into your own hands and place your own faith into your own hands. So you can't tell them, you can't let them tell you what to believe. You have to tell yourself what to believe. And then you have to act on what you believe. Does that make sense, my black people? I'm serious. You must do what it is that's right for you. But you can't have them say to you, believe this, black person. No, believe this, black person. You should believe what is that is right to your mind. Bro, falls directly in line with the endless scheme. It's one endless piece of fuckery. You see what I'm saying? Before Willie Lynch, there was somebody else who said something crazy. And all we're doing and all we're seeing is the totality of the insanity of the oppressing ruling class. Their life will not be good unless our life is bad. Once again, their great white hope lies solely in your black despair. They are white trash meeting black gold. They are nothing. And with that said, I cannot contend enough. Their rapture has already happened. Can y'all dig it? Their rapture has already taken place. I have nothing else to prove. I don't have anything to lose, really. But I've most definitely got nothing else to prove. Not in this case. Uh, what I'm going to talk about for the next just couple minutes, real quick. And then I'm going to let y'all be. What is there? Jim Crow is still the worst thing that ever happened to black people outside of slavery. The internet, the internet is pretty bad in general. Uh, Technology, I could just argue in general, is horrible on black people because of their vain nature. But Jim Crow is the single-handed worst thing to ever happen to black people, for sure, outside of slavery. And I don't care what anyone says or thinks about it. Willie Lynch couldn't save your black ass, weren't you? Once you were no longer property, you weren't worth money anymore. And a large part of that letter went out the window at the end of your indentured servitude. Right. It just became a daily breaking game. Rape them, beat them, torture them, murder them, brutalize them, rob them, extort them. Right. Make them fear you like you are God Himself. And then say to them, "Oh, I've turned over a new leaf. New leaf. I'm a Christian man. Jesus is all in my heart." But Jesus wasn't in your heart when you were raping this man's mother. Was Jesus in your heart when you told her that if she didn't go to a clinic and figure out a way to get rid of that child, that you'd figure it out for her? Huh? Was Jesus in your heart when you killed the woman because she couldn't get her husband to give up his guns? Right. And so your little fuckery with this black woman comes to an end. Tragedy for her. But you get away with it? Right. Right. Same thing for the black man. White woman having a secret affair with the black man in the early 1900s. He tells her, hey, you know what? I don't think this is safe for you or I. What does she do? She says, okay, all right. I'm going to go tell the authorities he raped me without question, because he can't say that he never had sex with the woman. Too pious to lie, too altruistic not to suffer. So what does he do? He ends up dead by the hands of God knows how many. See, these are the types of things that happen that if people looked into the real human nature of it, they would understand. Okay. Ah, now it makes sense. Oh, now it makes sense why these white supremacist dudes used to brutalize some of these women the way that they did. Because it's not just white men who would just come across the tracks and just force themselves onto somebody's wife. No, these are black women who were knowingly sleeping around on their husbands with white men. And the white man terrified that if that baby come out and that man said that that baby ain't his, that ain't no scary Negro you're dealing with. That's a Negro that'll kill somebody. Right. So in all these different instances of these black men being accosted for no apparent reason by Klan members, and then that same woman that was married to that man giving babies, supposedly she was raped by these sorry motherfuckers, supposedly, but gives babies to these same bastards that killed her husband. It only makes you wonder, what part of that did you really not play? It's an endless scheme, y'all. And it's a dirty game. And once again, Jim Crow let so much more fuckery go down. And that 80-year period, there's probably more suffering than there's probably more suffering in that 80 years than there was the last 200 years of slavery, for sure. Because the first couple hundred years of slavery were the absolute worst. Believe that. Believe that. See, they want you to think that you were not enslaved before 1619. I have no reason but to believe that you were enslaved before that. And I'm telling you, the first couple hundred years of indentured servitude were much easier than the years that followed once you got out of indentured servitude, hardcore indentured servitude. I mean, those years that followed were so fucking crazy. What, you think they killed less blacks during Jim Crow than they killed in slavery? Just once again, if Willie Lynch hit him up in 1712, technically slavery wouldn't have been started for even a whole 100 years. So they weren't even a whole 100 years in, and he came and checked them and said, hey, dog, enough of that. No more of that shit. Right. That didn't even make sense. And then they make you think that the term lynching is based on getting hung by a rope. But Willie Lynch was opposed to hanging your slaves. Right. He'd figure you did something wrong to one of them that was so brutal and so bad that the rest of them wouldn't want to fuck around. Now, what he's seeing was something that he had practiced just in his lifetime. and it worked in his lifetime. So he figured if you guys do it, it'll work in yours too. Not realizing that the people that were brought to America were not exactly the same people that he was dealing with in the West Indies. It's so wicked how people think, but I want y'all to really encompass that thought with me. 1712, 1619. So you're talking about 93 years, okay? Supposedly go by. And this guy says, hey, look, I smelled a slave's dead body a couple miles back. I just wanted to tell y'all that was a waste of money. Not that that was inhumane, not that that was evil and wicked. That was a waste of money. So understand, when you were no longer worth a fucking dime, not one red cent, all that saving the money, keeping your money alive, keeping your money in good shape, right, was pointless and useless. So then the scheme just became to, how bad can you oppress them? Hell, they got so vicious with their oppression. They said, shit, we can oppress them way more than you can here in this state. If you look at what they did to black people during the times of a lot of those race riots, it seemed as if it was one white city or state trying to one up the other white city and state. Like, no, we're more racist than you. The other one's like, no, 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 no. We're way more hateful than you'll ever be. Right. That's all it seems like. You stand back and look at it. But you'd have to have the time to stand back and look at it. And then you'd have to be objective enough to see it, to say, okay, though they did treat all people of a certain hue within a certain time frame, yes, they treated them all with a certain level of disdain and hatred, but some of them were treated with less disdain, less hatred. Some would even call it favorability. This created nothing at that time. How I know this is because these same black people got out of slavery and started businesses that thrived, communities that would still be thriving. Right. So Willie Lynch letters are bull fucking shit. The endless scheme is bigger than that. The endless scheme picked up a Jim Crow style, and at the you could argue the beginning of Jim Crow with eugenics, giving white people a reason to feel that what they had and owned, they worked for it, they deserved it. It wasn't my fault that your ancestors were slaves. What? What? People are, again, sick in their heads. They are sick in their heads. And they want you to be sick with them. Because misery, what? That's right, loves company. And they are miserable. Because they're only now just now coming to realize that for some of them it's too late. They can't be saved. And since they figure that they can't be saved, they won't let you, brothers and sisters who are still salvageable, to be saved. They said, fuck that. Bringing them down too. How are we going to bring them down, Johnny? We're going to make them think that they just got to breathe themselves out. Life will be better. Right. Jim Crow is still in full effect. It never left. But I'm talking about it winded down from the vicious animal that it was to a tame beast. It is no longer the tiger that it was. It is most definitely a lynx. It is no longer that tiger that it used to be. Still a wild cat, but not nearly as dangerous as it was. Because all eyes are on those who claim to be oh so pious, oh so righteous. See, their endless scheme, because Jim Crow is older than eugenics. People need to understand that. You know what I'm saying? Jim Crow is older than eugenics. Jim Crow is younger than Darwinianism and younger than uh, 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 the initial experiments that led to genetics from Gregor Mendel. You see what I mean? But Jim Crow is older than eugenics. So Jim Crow, you could argue, was supported by things like eugenics. Once again, eugenics didn't die until World War II. We won't even say die, we'll say it was put on the back burners and okay, we can't say we're eugenicists anymore because this fucking crazy ass peckerhead went crazy, right? Exactly right. He went crazy and made us all look like shit, right? And Hitler was like, "Isn't this what you guys wanted to do?" And they're like, "Yeah, bro, but not like that." He's like, "So, is this not what you guys wanted to do or not?" And they're like, "Yeah," but they're like, "Not like that, though." And he's like, "No, no, 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 no. Either you wanted this or you didn't want this." You see what I'm saying? And Hitler was one of those kind of crazy white boys. Right, right. Black people still got lynched after World War II, but the talk of eugenics died down after World War II. Believe that. Why do you think that is? It's because hanging black people was the only thing that they could do to somehow still strike the fear of God into the black man. Because that was the one thing that they could do before they ever knew of some Jim Crow to settle everything down. Right. So when you talk about the term lynching, it doesn't come from, and then for you to associate it with the rope, it doesn't come from Willie Lynch. Right. I've already told y'all before, the real reason why they hung black people was because the Messiah was black. And if you read in the book of Luke, he was hung from a tree. That's why they hang black people. That's the only reason why they hang black people. Anyway, coming up on my last little ass end here. But I love sharing those little things like that about the Messiah, about how he was hung from a tree, which is why they used to hang us from trees. And I'm sure certain places they have gotten away with things just like that, even in these modern times. That's right, curse. It's okay though. It's okay though. They don't have to accept that the Messiah wasn't thrown on a cross, that he was hung from a tree. I know the white man read that and said, "Oh, that's exactly what I'm going to do." Isn't it vicious, y'all? Isn't it vicious? That's just how it is. Trying to tell y'all, they don't want us to see it. Oh, of course, Brother Mike. But that's the whole point, though. An endless scheme is just that. When one thing stops working, you use the next. Sometimes people just need to be shown that they're not what they think they are, bro. I always say that the Most High's people inherited a land that was already furnished. They needed not to do any work. So it was poetic justice that they were sent to a land that had to be completely furnished, and they did all the work, and they get no credit. It's poetic justice. Unfortunate, but it's poetic. Black people, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I find your time very valuable and precious, and I respect your time. And I respect you, and I appreciate you. I would just love to salute you guys as I do, my customary salute. I am going to allow y'all to carry on with your beautiful nights. Y'all be good, and may the Most High continue to guide us all and give clarity to the things it is that we are looking for. I appreciate you guys, and I love y'all. Peace out.